This life prepper here talking about prepping for floods. You got people I call them flood preppers, and depends on how you choose to use it. You can use the term in many different ways. The fact is, no place is 100% safe. You could be in a desert area and get caught in a flood because even the desert has massive storms from time to time. The point is, climate is changing. It's been changed since the beginning of time, and man has had a lot to do with this climate change. For simple reasons, is the buildings like New York and Chicago and all these other, where they keep building them taller, 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 taller. California and all these other places. It affects the wind patterns. It affects the weather patterns that goes around these buildings. All that affects the weather. Going in and building, cleaning off more and more land is exposing areas to floods where before there was no problem with it because of it. So, but here it is. This is from DFES, Department of Fire and Emergency Safety, right here. Now it talks about things you need to do. Understand flood risk to your area. Prepare your home and property. Respond when water comes. Don't keep sitting on your butt. Cut the TV off. Think about what you need to do. Get some things lined up, prepared just in case. And don't be an idiot and jump in your car and go driving down the road, because I want to tell you a lot of people have died due to that. And recover after flood. Now here it says you can prepare for flooding in a number of ways. Check with your local council about local flood plans or records which detail problem areas. Now, I really not even thought about that, but that's a good point. Down in Tennessee, from where I'm from, down in Lebanon and stuff, floods was prone to happen. I mean, the whole state of Tennessee is covered with underground caverns and chambers and stuff that none of them been discovered. We know they run countless miles underneath there in different areas, and they were just discovered by accident years and years ago when the town square collapsed. They didn't realize they had all this underneath there. So that's what happened. Is one friend of mine, they wound up moving their house back around 25 feet, I think. Might have been more than that. It might have been 250 yards. I might be wrong on it, but I know they moved it back because what it was, the house was right there at the edge of the creek bed, and it flooded one year. Flooded the house. Now the creek bed didn't rise every year and get to the house, but it did get to it. So they decided, and they had the whole house just literally moved several feet back to keep from being caught in the flood of the creek bed. So that's something you got to think about. If you're able to afford it and have your house jacked up, like I say, the Hurricane Katrina, when the dikes and everything broke, you seen where those houses were just at ground level. They weren't raised up off the water. Some houses were, but they still got water in them, but they didn't get nearly the amount as some of the others. Some people drowned in these places up in their attics because they wound up getting up in the attic, couldn't go nowhere, and they end up drowning in it because they was trapped. So this is something to think about. It says, ask authorities about relocation routes and scenarios. And that's very important. If you get trapped in the roads, because we got trapped. We only had one way out when it flooded. We was just lucky there because it happened to be a higher level, and we was lucky. Otherwise, we would have been trapped for days with water all around us. I mean, I've seen more than my share of places getting destroyed due to floods. So then it says, if your area is flood prone, consider alternatives to carpet. What it's basically saying is carpet will hold the water. And if you ever walked in after something's flooding, you go, well, it's really pretty soaked. I mean, cost of having someone come in to clean it or you do it, it can be a pretty bad situation. Also, it traps in contamination stuff in the flood stage. It will hold water in it and keep it into it, so you're getting more of a chance of other problems, health problems as well, contributing to this carpet being soaked and mold in it and everything else. Problems that can happen afterwards. It says prepare emergency kit, of course. We all know what you got to do on that. Now, in a flood situation, you need to make sure you got waterproof kits inside. That way, if it does flood, you can go to it located. You get your food, your water, your supplies out that you need to help sustain yourself until help comes. It says, prepare a household flood plan. And that's a good scenario there for flood preppers and even those who are not flood preppers, is to prepare where they would go, what they would do, what they need to do. Having a actually, having an inflatable raft, if you can afford an inflatable raft, having a little rowboat on hand, whatever you can afford, to have on hand, because you just don't know what's going to happen in this situation. It says keep a list of emergency telephone numbers on display, and I would put that in a laminated or a Ziploc bag, but I would have it in more than one area. I wouldn't just put it on my cell phone. I would have it listed in several areas to have it just in case you need it, and it does wherever your area is at, it's watered down and you can't get to it. It says check your insurance policy to see if you are covered for flood damage. So many people have insurance, but they don't have flood insurance because they've never had a flood in that area. They're the only ones that had a flood. This is contributed to climate change. This is contributed to Mother Nature. This is contributed to man itself. So all this is a factor. It's something to think about, to check into it, research, to see when the last time a flood happened. It might have been 50 years when the last flood happened, but it happened. With the dams being built, everything being rerouted, buildings being built, land being cleared off in areas that was not cleared off before, changes the situation. So that's a lot to think about as a flood prepper. And I don't mean saying flood prepper in a bad way. People's like, oh gosh, you're talking one of the aluminum hat people. No, I'm not. I'm talking about common sense. Secure hazardous items. Now that's what I was talking about in contamination. Make sure the items are placed in an area where they won't get out, it won't float away, whatever. Make sure they're in a secure place to be safe. Because the thing about that is they get in the water, things happen, something could puncture the container could leak out into the water, could leak out onto whatever you've got, the furnitures or whatever. And if your hands come in contact, or your body comes in contact where that's leaking, well, you're just kind of screwed in a situation, aren't you? It says roll up rugs, move furniture, electric items, and valuables to a higher level. So if something you really, really pride on, I would move it up to a level. You got some pictures you might be love, and that's the only ones you got. I'd move them up to a higher level. I would think about that in that situation. Same way with a lot of the valuables. I'd move it up to a higher level. And again, like I say, I would have some food and backup water and everything on a higher level as well. It says, place important documents, valuables, and vital medical supplies into a waterproof case and accessible location. Okay, so like I said, the waterproof cases I've talked about. And I would create more than one. I would just settle for one because you just don't know what happened. I would put one out in the garage. I would put it up there in the attic, whatever. I put it on the second floor. It don't have to be real huge, but just something else, just in different areas to have it. It says, if you are relocating, take your pets with you if it is safe to do so. If not, provide adequate food and water. Move them to a safer place. I remember watching things on Hurricane Katrina. People was going around rescuing animals where they just left them tied up and they would have drowned otherwise because they got all knotted up. They was upset that people just left them. Didn't even think about fixing them a place. And one dog, he was in a point of ground but he could have got up on the deck. And so that's what they thought. Well, he'll get up on the deck and he'll be okay. Well, the problem is he didn't get up on the deck. He got all tangled up underneath the deck. And if people hadn't come along and rescued him, the dog would have died. I mean, they rescued a countless number of animals that was tied up. People just left them. I'd rather just untie them and let them go on their own free will and find shelter somewhere than sit there and let them drown in that situation, leave them tied up. Just, let them go. It says, and then monitor Bureau of Meteorology, forecasts and warnings online, and listen to your local ABC radio. And that's something else you need to do. You don't need to take it for granted. Say, okay, yeah, it's going to be fine. The problem is a lot of people just can't afford to leave. They can't afford to leave every time that weather warning comes out. They just don't have the money. So you need to think about things to take care of yourself. Like I said, the fence, the sandbags, the waterproof containers. Just number a lot of things, that you need to think about in a situation to help survive, you know, life preservers and things like that. What you've got to do to do and survive. It's a lot to think about. It says relocate to safer ground. If rising water threatens your home and you decide to move to a safer location, tell the police, your nearest state emergency service unit, or your neighbors of your plans to move. So let them know that you're leaving. Let them know you're going somewhere, you know. So, and then it says pack warm clothing, essential medical valuables, and personal papers in waterproof bags along with your emergency kits. So all this here I've already basically went over. It's talking about emptying the freezer and the refrigerator, leaving doors open to avoid damage or loss if they float. Never really thought about that. Avoid damage if they float. Leaving doors open. That don't make a lot of sense, does it? I get you leave the doors open to. I don't know about that. I don't know if I'd want to leave my refrigerator door wide open like that, because I don't see how it would. Well, no, I take it back. What it's talking about is that if you close the door in the freezer, the air in it is like a bubble, and it will cause it to flow. So leaving it cracked open, putting like a block or something, leaving it cracked open, you can always clean it back out. It will reduce some of the chances of damage. I can see what they're talking about on that. It says whether you leave or stay. It's talking about sandbags. Put sandbags in the toilet bowl and all over laundry, bathroom drains, hose to prevent sewage backflow. I never really thought about putting a bag of sand in my toilet. But in that area, and I never really thought about the drainage thing, but they got a point there putting bags of sand there to keep the sewage from backing up into your house, because that will happen when the water floods. So that's something to think about. Never really even thought about that, but that's something I need to learn. And then it says lock your home and take recommended location routes for your area, of course. Do not drive into water of unknown depth and current. Like I said, I've seen there's people that's died in Tennessee years ago when my cousin Randy was still a detective, and the square flood. This woman, after they told him, no, you can't go, she passed through and went through that square and ended up drowning because of it. So another woman, same way with her children. She insisted on crossing the bridge, thought it was safe. In a matter of seconds, a gush of water came through. The car floated down river, and they unfortunately found the bodies of her and her children where they drowned because of the gush of water come through. So don't ever take a chance on going through any of that. It's just not smart. It can cost your life. Like I say, I've lived in these flood areas. I know what it can be like, and it's not something you enjoy. And then too late to leave. Monitor your local radio for warning and advice. Get to higher ground. Switch off electricity and gas supplies to your home. That's very important. Go down there and cut that breaker off. Cut your gas line off. Because if electricity comes in there and water and everything, boom. Instant fright. Same way with the gas leaking and everything. It busts lines. You can still have the same thing. Explosion. It's dangerous. It says prepare to move vehicles, outdoor equipment, garage, chemicals, and poisons to higher location. Prepare for the well-being of pets. Raise furniture above likely flood levels. Check your emergency kit. Do not allow children to play in or near flood waters. Avoid entering flood waters. If you must do so, wear solid shoes and check depth and current with a stick. Just common sense. Just use a stick. I don't care if you got to use a broom. Just use that broom, because you could easily drown very quickly, because in a flood situation, the water is very unstable and it can be rushing by very, very fast. Stay away from drains and other areas over knee deep. Do not use gas or electric appliances that have been in flood water until checked for safety. Again, it's like I say, something could happen. Do not eat food that has been in flood waters. So, it's like he's talking about is meat and all that stuff that's been in the flood waters. Just common sense. You're not going to eat flour and stuff once it's been flooded. So that's why you want to create some waterproof containers for it. Now, I don't know about canned goods. Canned goods shouldn't be no problem. You just got to make sure you rinse it off. And the food inside should be just fine, because that's sealed up. Same way with a canning and stuff. It's sealed up in that jar. It shouldn't affect it. But still, you need to check it before you do anything. It says, and boil tap water until supplies have been declared safe. Even after it's all over with and you get water back on your house, still boil it, filter it out just to be safe. So that's a lot to think about on these things here. We just don't never know on any of this here. So I found it interesting. It's actually showed me a lot of things I really haven't thought about. Like I said, I didn't know about the refrigerator or the freezer deal, or put a little prop thing there to keep it from floating. And so it's a lot to think about. It's just common sense on a lot of it. But if you live in an area and you are a flood prepper, it's a lot to think about, things that you need to do. So each week, get you that waterproof container you want. You can make it, unless you own from some PVC pipes or whatever, and water seal them. But think about that waterproof container. Think about putting a little bit each week to the side in there, whether it's a toilet paper or medical supplies, first aid kits, food that you can eat, and make sure you rotate the food out. Canned viands, canned meat, whatever. Things like you won't be able to cook a lot of the food, so you're gonna have to. Chances are you're gonna be eating cold food. So you're gonna be eating a cold can of pork and beans or whatever it is. So you need to think along that route, what you're gonna be able and can eat, even if you're putting bags of potato chips in there or crackers or whatever. Put it in the waterproof container and rotate it out regular. So be careful. Something to think about. Be safe. Be happy. Bless you all.